The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had not changed in 3,000 years. The same crystal walls rose toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. The same 12 seats formed a perfect circle at the center. The same soft light fell upon the same ancient floor, where countless species had come to beg for help they would never receive. Speaker Vethel sat in the highest seat, his crystalline body catching the light and throwing rainbows across the chamber. He had held this position for 600 years. His people, the Senari, lived for thousands of years, and they considered this a great advantage in matters of governance. They could take the long view. They could be patient. They could wait for problems to solve themselves. Today's session had been going on for 7 hours, and Vethel was bored. A small creature stood at the speaking platform below the council seats. It was a Vichy, a rodent-like being from a minor world near the outer rim. The Vichy ambassador had been talking for nearly an hour about attacks on his people's shipping lanes. Raiders were taking their cargo ships. Families were disappearing. They needed help. Vethel let the creature finish its speech before responding. "The council thanks you for bringing this matter to our attention," he said, his voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We will form a committee to study the situation. You may expect a preliminary report within the next standard cycle." The Vichy ambassador's whiskers trembled. "A standard cycle is 12 of your years. My people are dying now. These matters require careful consideration," said Councillor Mareth, a massive being covered in thick gray hide. His species, the Torvan, were known for their caution. They had survived for millions of years by never taking risks. "We cannot simply send forces into disputed territory. There are treaties to consider, protocols to follow." "The Dominion controls those trade routes," added Councillor Seeks, serpentine creature whose scales shifted colors with her mood. Currently, they were a dull green, the color of disinterest. Any action against raiders in that sector could be seen as an act against the Dominion itself. "We have enjoyed peace with them for 800 years. A peace bought with the lives of those too weak to matter," the Vichy said bitterly. The council did not respond to this. They had heard such accusations before. They would hear them again. Nothing would change. The Vichy ambassador was escorted out, and the chamber fell into a comfortable silence. Servants brought refreshments. Councillors chatted among themselves about upcoming social events, about trade agreements, about nothing that mattered. Ambassador Crix of the Dominion watched from his observation seat with barely hidden amusement. The Dominion was not a member of the council, but they were granted permanent observer status due to their control of key trade routes. Crix was tall and thin, with gray skin pulled tight over sharp bones. His people were predators, and they had never bothered to hide it. "Another successful session," Crix said to Councillor Marath as the break continued. "The council handles these matters with such grace." Marath did not catch the mockery in Crix's voice, or perhaps he simply chose to ignore it. "We maintain stability. That is our purpose." "Indeed. Speaking of stability, I wonder if the council has given further thought to the quarantine around the Sol system." Vethel's crystals chimed as he turned toward the conversation. "The quarantine remains in place. The species there is too primitive and too violent for contact. Our observers report they are still fighting wars among themselves." "A pity," Crix said, but his eyes showed something other than pity. "Such a waste of resources. That system has 3 habitable worlds and extensive mineral deposits in its asteroid belt. The humans will destroy themselves eventually," said Councillor Tyron. "A graceful being with 4 arms and skin like polished copper? Their kind always does. We have seen it 100 times. Let them burn themselves out, then we can claim the system for proper use." Several councillors nodded at this wisdom. It was the accepted view. The humans were a mistake of evolution. A species that had somehow developed technology without developing the temperament to use it responsibly. They would be gone within a few centuries, and good riddance. "I've watched their broadcasts," Seek said, her scales shifting to an amused purple. "They actually believe they are alone in the universe. They look up at the stars and wonder if anyone is out there. It would be sad if it weren't so funny." "Their ignorance is our protection," Vethel said. "As long as they believe themselves alone, they remain contained. Let us move to the next matter." The session continued. More petitions were heard. More committees were formed. More problems were delayed until they became someone else's concern. This was how the council had operated for 10,000 years. This was how it would operate for 10,000 more, or so they believed. At a monitoring station on the far side of the chamber, a young Scenari named Lathan was reviewing sensor data from the outer reaches of council space. She was a junior analyst, barely 200 years old, and her job was to flag anything unusual for her superiors to ignore. Something unusual appeared on her screen. A ship had dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the protected zone around the station. This was not remarkable in itself. Ships came and went constantly. But this ship had no registration code. It was not responding to standard identification requests, and its design matched nothing in the council database. Lathan studied the readings with growing unease. The ship was large, almost the size of a Dominion battlecruiser. But where Dominion ships were sleek and elegant, this vessel was rough, angular, covered in what appeared to be battle damage that had been repaired many times. It looked like something that had been built in desperation, modified in crisis, and held together by stubbornness alone. She flagged the reading and sent it to her supervisor. The response came back within minutes. Probably a smuggler with damaged transponders. File it for review next quarter. Lathan wanted to argue. Something about that ship made her crystalline structure vibrate with unease. But she was young, and her superiors had thousands of years of experience. Surely they knew better. She filed the report and returned to her other work in the main chamber. The session was winding down. The counselors were congratulating themselves on another productive day. They had maintained stability. They had avoided conflict. They had done what the council always did. Ambassador Crix lingered as the others began to depart. He caught Counselor Mrath's attention one final time. "I meant to mention," Crix said casually, "the Dominion has been conducting some operations in the outer territories lately. Nothing the council needs to concern itself with, of course. Just routine expansion." "The council appreciates being informed," Mrath said. "Though the council had not actually been informed of anything specific. We may encounter some resistance from local populations," Crix continued. "I trust the council will maintain its traditional stance of non-interference in Dominion affairs." "The council does not interfere in the internal matters of sovereign species," Mrath confirmed. "That is our policy." "Excellent." Crix's thin lips stretched into something that might have been a smile. "I knew we could count on the council's wisdom." He departed, leaving the chamber empty, except for the servants cleaning up and the junior analysts finishing their reports. Lathan looked one more time at the sensor data from the unknown ship. It had moved closer to the station. It was still not responding to hails, and now she could see that it was not alone. More ships were appearing at the edge of sensor range, 5, then 10, then more than she could easily count. She flagged the report again. Marking it urgent this time, her supervisor responded with irritation. "I told you to file it. Whatever it is, it can wait until next quarter. The council has more important matters to attend to." Lathan deleted the flag and filed the report as instructed. Her supervisor had thousands of years of experience. The council had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had seen everything, survived everything, handled everything. Surely they knew what they were doing. The unknown ships continued their approach, silent and steady, carrying something the council had never encountered in all its long history: consequences in the grand chamber. The lights dimmed as the last counselors departed. The crystal walls stood eternal, unchanging. Confident in their permanence, they had 12 hours of peace, remaining before the universe they knew would end forever. In the darkness of space, the ship called Defiance adjusted its course and accelerated toward the station. Its captain stood on the bridge. Looking at the glittering structure that held the rulers of known space, she had come a very long way to have a conversation with them, and she had brought enough firepower to make sure they listened. The alarm was a sound that had not been heard on eternal accord in over 2,000 years. It was so old that most of the station's inhabitants did not recognize it at first. They looked up from their meals, their work, their conversations, wondering what strange music someone was playing. Then the emergency lights began to flash, and panic followed. Wetzel was in his private quarters when the alarm reached him. He had been preparing for a diplomatic reception later that evening, choosing which of his ceremonial crystals to wear. The alarm made his entire body vibrate uncomfortably. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded as he swept into the command center. The officers there were staring at their screens with expressions of complete disbelief. One of them, a Torvin female named Greth, turned to face him. "Speaker, we have an unidentified vessel within the protected zone. It dropped out of FTL travel directly inside our defensive perimeter." "That's impossible. Our sensors would have detected it long before it reached the perimeter." "Our sensors did detect it, Speaker. The report was filed for review next quarter." Wetzel's crystals turned a dark shade of angry red. He would deal with that failure later. "What do we know about this vessel?" "It's large. Heavily armed, we think, though the weapons configurations don't match anything in our database. It appears to have sustained significant damage at some point and been extensively repaired. The construction is crude but functional." "Pirates?" "Raiders. Unknown, Speaker. They're not responding to standard hails. We've broadcast warnings in 67 languages. No response. Send fighters to intercept. Force them to identify themselves or retreat." Greth hesitated. "Speaker, we sent fighters. They're holding position at what they describe as a safe distance. They say the unknown vessel's weapons are tracking them, and they don't want to provoke an incident. They're afraid. They're cautious, Speaker. The vessel is intimidating." Vettel pushed his way to a viewing screen and looked at the ship for himself. He understood immediately what the fighters meant. The vessel was a monster. It was black and gray, covered in scars and patches, where hull breaches had been sealed with whatever materials were available. Gun turrets bristled from every surface. The design was brutal, functional, without any attempt at elegance or beauty. It looked like something that had crawled out of a war and kept fighting long after it should have died. "What species could have built such a thing?" Wetzel asked. "Unknown, Speaker. The design doesn't match any known civilization. It must match something. There are over 3,000 spacefaring species in the known galaxy. We've checked, Speaker. This ship doesn't belong to any of them." Before Wetzel could respond, a new alarm sounded. More ships were appearing on sensors. They were emerging from FTL all around the station, taking up positions in a wide circle. 20, 30, 47 in total. And they all looked like the first. One battle-scarred, heavily armed. Built for war and nothing else. Speaker Greth said, her voice shaking slightly. "We're receiving a transmission. Put it through." The main screen flickered, and a face appeared. It was a face unlike any Wetzel had seen before. Soft skin, 2 eyes facing forward like a predator. Short dark hair. Features that looked tired, worn, hardened by experiences he could not imagine. A human face. "This is Captain Alina Vasquez of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Defiance," the face said. "I need to speak with whoever's in charge of this station. In person." "I'm coming aboard now." The transmission ended. "Speaker, a shuttle has launched from the lead vessel. It's heading for our main hangar. Stop it." "How, Speaker?" "Our fighters won't engage. Our defensive systems were designed for external threats, not vessels already inside the perimeter. And with 47 warships surrounding us?" Wetzel understood. They were helpless. The thought was so foreign to him that he could barely process it. The Council had not been helpless in 10,000 years. "Send guards to the hangar," he ordered, "and summon the full Council. It seems we have guests." The shuttle landed in the main hangar without requesting permission or following any protocols. Station guards surrounded it immediately, weapons drawn. They were members of half a dozen different species, all chosen for their size and strength. They had trained for years to handle security threats. None of them had ever faced an actual security threat. The shuttle's door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was small by the standards of most galactic species, barely reaching the chest of the nearest guard. She wore a uniform that had been mended many times, decorated with patches and symbols the guards did not recognize. A weapon hung at her hip, strange and angular. 2 soldiers followed her. Both humans, both armed, both watching everything with sharp and careful eyes. The guards pointed their weapons. The woman looked at them with something that might have been amusement or might have been exhaustion too deep for fear. "I need directions to your council chamber," she said. Her translator rendered the words in perfect common tongue. "I'd appreciate it if you'd take me there. We have a lot to discuss." The lead guard, a massive Torvin, stepped forward. "You are in violation of 17 council regulations. You will surrender your weapons and submit to detention until no," the woman said simply. "I won't." She started walking toward the hangar exit. The guards moved to block her path. "I'm not here to fight you," she said, still walking. "I'm here to talk to your bosses. You can shoot me if you want, but then my ships will reduce this station to dust, and I'll never get my answers. So you can either take me to the council chamber, or you can get out of my way, and I'll find it myself." The guards looked at each other. They had no protocols for this. No training. No experience with someone who simply refused to acknowledge their authority. The woman walked past them. The guards followed, unsure what else to do. Word of her approach spread through the station. Crowds gathered in corridors to watch her pass. They saw a small, soft-skinned creature walking with the confidence of a conqueror. Through a station that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, they saw her soldiers, who watched every shadow, every doorway, every potential threat. With the alertness of people who had lived too long with death, they saw something they did not understand. Something that made them afraid in ways they could not name. The council was assembled when she arrived. All 12 counselors sat in their ancient seats, surrounded by guards and advisors and observers. Ambassador Crix was there too, watching from his usual position with an expression of polite interest. Captain Elena Vasquez walked to the speaking platform and looked up at the most powerful beings in the known galaxy. "My name is Elena Vasquez," she said. "I represent Earth and its colonies. I'm here because 5 years ago, ships belonging to the Dominion attacked our settlements, killed our people, and took our survivors as slaves. And I want to know why you let it happen." Silence filled the chamber. Then Vethel spoke, his voice carrying the authority of 600 years as speaker. "You must be mistaken. The Dominion is a trusted partner of this council. They would not. They would, and they did." Vasquez reached into her jacket and removed a small device. 47 attacks. 12 colonies raided. Over 90,000 humans killed or taken. I have recordings, coordinates, testimonies from survivors we rescued. I have the wreckage of Dominion ships with council registration marks. I have everything. "This is absurd," Ambassador Crix said, rising from his seat. "These creatures clearly do not understand how civilized beings conduct themselves. They should be removed and their ships destroyed for this insult." Vasquez looked at him. Just looked. There was something in her eyes that made Crix stop talking. "Your Dominion," she said. It was not a question. "I am the Dominion ambassador to this council, and I demand." "We took 37 of your ships," Vasquez said, her voice quiet and flat. 37 ships that attacked our colonies over 5 years. We didn't have faster-than-light travel when this started. We didn't have shields or advanced weapons. We learned. We adapted. We took everything we needed from the people who tried to destroy us." She looked around the chamber at the watching counselors. "So when you ask how we got here, how we built these ships, how we crossed a galaxy that's supposed to be too big for primitives like us to navigate, the answer is standing right there," she pointed at Crix. "We learned from the Dominion. We learned from every ship they sent to kill us." The chamber had gone very quiet. 37 ships, Counselor Marath said slowly. "You claim to have captured 37 Dominion warships. Not captured, destroyed. We took what we needed from the wreckage and built our own. That's impossible. The Dominion has the 3rd largest fleet in the galaxy. 37 ships would represent a small fraction of their strength. We know, that's why they kept sending more. And we kept learning." Vasquez smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Humans are good at learning, Counselor. It's how we survived on a planet that tried to kill us every day. It's how we'll survive now." Ambassador Crix had gone pale, his gray skin turning almost white. This is lies. Propaganda. These creatures are clearly delusional. Check your records, Vasquez said. 37 ships lost in what your people called routine operations over 5 years. 37 ships that never came home. You know exactly where they went. The counselors were looking at Crix now, looking at him differently. We have questions, Vasquez continued, about our people who were taken, where they are, what was done to them, and we're not leaving until we get answers. You cannot threaten this council, Vethel said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. We have governed this galaxy for 10,000 years. I'm not threatening you, Speaker. I'm informing you. There's a difference. Vasquez looked up at him with eyes that had seen too much death to fear anything anymore. You can help us, or you can stay out of our way. But you cannot stop us. Not anymore. The chamber fell silent again. Outside, 47 human warships held their positions around the station, weapons ready, crews waiting. Inside, the rulers of the galaxy faced a single human woman and realized, perhaps for the first time in their long history, that they had no idea what to do. The silence in the council chamber stretched on for what felt like hours. Captain Vasquez stood at the speaking platform, patient as stone. Waiting for the rulers of the galaxy to find their voices, Ambassador Crix found his first. This is clearly a fabrication designed to damage relations between the Dominion and the Council. These humans are obviously aggressive and unstable. Their presence here proves that the quarantine should have been enforced more strictly. The quarantine, Vasquez said flatly. Yes, let's talk about that. You knew we were there. You watched us for how long? Centuries. You watched us develop technology, build ships, reach for the stars, and you decided we weren't worth talking to. You were violent, Counselor Seek said, her scales shifting to a defensive orange. Your own broadcasts showed wars, conflicts, atrocities. You killed each other over resources, over beliefs, over nothing at all. What civilized species would invite such creatures into the galactic community? So instead, you let the Dominion use us for target practice. We knew nothing about Dominion activities in your sector, Vethel said firmly. Whatever claims you make, the Council was not informed of any actions against human settlements. Vasquez reached into her jacket and pulled out a data chip. Then explain this. She activated the chip. And images projected onto the chamber's main display. Documents, communications, reports. These are transmissions between Dominion Command and their raider fleets. They reference Council awareness of the operations multiple times. They mention specific counselors by name. They describe the attacks as authorized resource acquisition in Council-designated primitive space. The chamber erupted. Counselors shouted denials. Ambassador Crix demanded the transmission be stopped. Guards moved forward, then stopped when they saw Vasquez's soldiers raise their weapons. We found these in the command center of the last Dominion ship we destroyed. Vasquez continued over the noise. The captain tried to delete everything before we boarded. He wasn't fast enough. Counselor Mareth held up a massive hand, and the chamber gradually quieted. How do we know these documents are genuine? They could be forgeries created to justify your aggression. You can verify them with your own intelligence services. Check the communication codes. Check the timestamps. Check the encryption protocols. It's all authentic. Vasquez looked around the chamber slowly. But you won't check, will you? Because you already know it's true. These accusations are baseless and insulting, Vethel said, but his crystalline form had dimmed to a troubled gray. The Council has maintained peace in this galaxy for 10,000 years. We do not authorize attacks on defenseless populations. You don't authorize them. You just ignore them when they happen. Vasquez pulled up another document. 300 years ago, the Vichy petitioned this council for protection against Dominion raiders. You formed a committee. Last week, a Vichy ambassador came here asking for the same thing. You formed another committee. In 300 years, nothing changed except the number of dead Vichy. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably. They remembered the Vichy petition. They remembered doing nothing about it. We're not responsible for the actions of other species, Counselor Tyreen said stiffly. The Council maintains neutrality in regional disputes. This is the foundation of galactic peace. No, Vasquez said quietly. This is the foundation of galactic cowardice. You sit in your crystal chamber and pretend that not choosing is not a choice. You watch weaker species suffer and tell yourselves it's not your problem. You let predators hunt because stopping them might be inconvenient. How dare you? Crix began. I dare because I buried my sister in the ruins of New Helsinki. Vasquez's voice cut through his protest like a blade. I dare because I held the hands of children who watched their parents dragged away to Dominion slave ships. I dare because for 5 years my people died while you debated committee structures and trade agreements. She stepped closer to the council seats, and for a moment, the most powerful beings in the galaxy leaned back from a single human woman. We sent distress signals. We broadcast pleas for help in every language we could translate. We begged the universe for assistance, and the universe answered with silence. Her voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. So we stopped asking. We started taking. And now, here we are. The chamber was completely silent now. Show them, Vasquez said to one of her soldiers. The soldier stepped forward and activated another display. This one showed star charts, fleet positions, movement patterns. The Dominion has a sector fleet of 200 ships stationed for light years from this position, Vasquez explained. Ambassador Crix has already sent a request for them to respond to what he calls an act of war against Council sovereignty. They should arrive in approximately 6 hours. You knew this and you still came here? Counselor Math asked, bewildered. I didn't come here to hide, Counselor. I came here to have a conversation. And when that fleet arrives, I want you to watch what happens. You cannot seriously believe your 47 ships can defeat 200 Dominion warships, Seek said. Her scales turning skeptical blue. I don't believe it. I know it. Vasquez turned to face the display showing her own fleet. For 5 years, we fought the Dominion with ships held together by tape and prayer. We lost battles. We lost colonies. We lost people, but we never stopped learning. Never stopped adapting. Every ship they sent against us taught us something new. Every weapon they used on us, we learned to counter. She pointed to her ships on the display. These aren't pretty. They're not elegant. They weren't built to impress anyone. They were built to win. Every system, every weapon, every piece of armor was designed based on 5 years of fighting and dying. The Dominion thinks they're coming to crush some primitive upstarts. They have no idea what they're walking into. Even if you defeat this fleet, Vethel said carefully, the Dominion has thousands more ships. You cannot fight the entire Dominion. No, but I can make fighting us too expensive to continue. Vasquez looked at the speaker with tired eyes. That's always been the human strategy, Speaker. We can't win every battle. We can't defeat every enemy. But we can make sure that anyone who attacks us pays a price they won't want to pay again. Ambassador Crix had been quietly speaking into a communication device. Now he stepped forward with recovered confidence. Fleet Admiral Vex confirms he is en route with the full sector fleet. 212 warships. He asks the Council to withdraw to a safe distance so he can deal with this human nuisance without risk to Council personnel. Vasquez nodded slowly. Thank you for confirming that, Ambassador. I've also transmitted your position and fleet strength to the Admiral. He knows exactly what he's facing. He says it will be over quickly. It will. Vasquez smiled that cold, empty smile again. Just not the way he expects. She turned back to the Council. I'm going to return to my ship now. I suggest you stay and watch. What happens next will help you understand some things about humanity that you apparently missed in all your years of observation. You're walking to your death, Counselor Tyron said. Whatever skills you think you have, you cannot overcome those odds. Maybe not. Vasquez started walking toward the chamber exit. But we stopped counting odds a long time ago. We count something else now. What? Marath asked despite himself. Vasquez paused at the doorway. Reasons. We count reasons to fight, and we have 90,000 of them waiting for us to bring them home. She walked out, her soldiers following. The Council watched her go in stunned silence. Ambassador Crix smoothed his robes and addressed the chamber. I apologize for this disruption, Speaker. The Dominion takes full responsibility for allowing these primitives to develop so far without intervention, once Fleet Admiral Vex has dealt with them. We will establish a permanent presence in their system to ensure nothing like this happens again. You mean you'll finish what you started? Counselor Morath said slowly. You'll destroy them completely, regrettably necessary. They've proven too dangerous to leave unchecked. Crix's thin lips stretched into something like satisfaction. But the council need not concern itself with the details. This will all be handled quietly, as these matters should be. The counselors looked at each other. For 10,000 years, they had maintained their power by never taking sides, never making enemies, never standing for anything that might disturb the comfortable peace they had built. But something had changed in this chamber today, something they could not quite name. Outside, the human fleet was moving, shifting positions, preparing. In 6 hours, the Dominion would arrive with overwhelming force, and the galaxy would learn whether a species that had crawled up from nothing, that had survived everything their own world could throw at them, that had refused to die, no matter how many times they were supposed to, whether such a species could truly be destroyed. The counselors settled in to watch. For the first time in 10,000 years, they were not certain of the outcome. The Dominion fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 212 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, their sleek hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. They were beautiful in the way that weapons are beautiful. Designed as much to intimidate as to destroy, Fleet Admiral Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, and surveyed the sensor data with satisfaction. 47 enemy ships, crude, ugly things that looked like they had been assembled from scrap metal and spite. His fleet outnumbered them more than 4-1. Signal the human vessels, he ordered. Tell them to surrender immediately or be destroyed. Give them 1 minute to comply. The message was sent. The response came back in 30 seconds. Dominion fleet, this is Captain Vasquez of the Defiance. The answer is no. Come and take us if you can. Dex smiled. He had heard about humans now, read the reports from commanders who had raided their colonies. They were brave, he would give them that. Stupid, but brave. All ships attack formation. Destroy them. In the council chamber, every counselor watched the battle unfold on the main display. Ambassador Crix stood among them, confident and relaxed. He had seen Dominion fleets in action many times. This would be over quickly. The Dominion ships moved forward in a standard encirclement pattern, designed to trap the enemy fleet and destroy it from all sides. It was a tactic that had worked against 100 different species over thousands of years. The human fleet did not try to escape the encirclement. They did not try to retreat. Instead, they did something the Dominion had never seen before. They scattered 47 ships, broke formation, and flew in 47 different directions, each one accelerating to speeds that should have torn their crude hulls apart. The neat Dominion encirclement suddenly had 47 different targets, all moving too fast to track properly. What are they doing? Counselor Morath asked, confused. They've broken their own formation. They're making themselves easier to pick off. Just watch, said Lathan, the young analyst who had first detected the human ships. She had been invited to the chamber to monitor the battle. She had not taken her eyes off the display since it began. The Dominion ships tried to adapt. They broke into hunting groups, each one pursuing a different human vessel. This was exactly what the humans wanted, the first Dominion hunting group. 3 cruisers chasing a single human ship realized their mistake too late. The human vessel they were pursuing suddenly reverse thrust, flying backward at full speed, while still facing them. Weapons that the Dominion sensors could not properly identify opened fire. 2 cruisers exploded in the first 10 seconds. The third tried to retreat and was destroyed by another human ship that had somehow circled around behind it. That's impossible, Ambassador Crix said, his confidence wavering. No ship can maneuver like that. The crew would be crushed by the acceleration. But the humans were doing it. Every human ship was doing it. They were flying in ways that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics that limited every other species in the galaxy. They reversed direction without slowing down. They spun and twisted while maintaining full thrust. They performed maneuvers that should have killed every person aboard. Their gravity systems, Lathan said quietly. They must have developed some way to compensate for acceleration effects. They can maneuver without worrying about crushing their crews. Counselor Tyron demanded. Such technology is theoretical at best. We've been researching it for thousands of years. They didn't have thousands of years. They had 5. Lathan's crystalline form shimmered with something that might have been admiration. They needed it to survive, so they invented it. On the display, the battle was becoming a slaughter. But not the slaughter anyone had expected. The Dominion ships were designed to fight in formation, to support each other, to overwhelm enemies with coordinated firepower. They were not designed to chase 47 separate targets across a 3-dimensional battlefield. They were not designed to face enemies who could change direction faster than their targeting. Systems could track. Human ships would appear behind Dominion vessels that thought they were pursuing them. They would fire concentrated bursts at weak points in Dominion armor, then vanish before return fire could find them. They fought like wolves hunting a herd, separating targets from the group and destroying them before moving to the next. Admiral Dex watched his fleet dying and could not understand what was happening. His ships were bigger, stronger, more numerous. They had centuries of combat experience. They were losing anyway. All ships form defensive sphere around the flagship, he ordered. Concentrate fire on any enemy vessel that approaches. The surviving Dominion ships tried to comply. They pulled back, gathering around the Eternal Conquest in a bristling ball of weapons. It was a defensive formation designed to make any attack impossibly costly. The human fleet stopped attacking. They pulled back to a safe distance and held position, surrounding the Dominion defensive sphere. What are they waiting for? Crix asked. They've stopped. You're giving him a chance to surrender, Counselor Mrath said slowly. He had finally understood something about the humans. They don't want to kill them all. They want to end this. A transmission appeared on the council display. Captain Vasquez, standing on the bridge of the Defiance, surrounded by crew members who looked exhausted but unbroken. Admiral Vex, this is Captain Vasquez. You've lost 63 ships in the past 2 hours. I've lost 3. You can stay in that ball and watch more of your people die, or you can surrender and answer some questions about our missing civilians. The choice is yours. Admiral Vex's response came back immediately. The Dominion does not surrender to primitives. You got lucky with your tricks, but luck runs out. We will destroy you, even if it costs every ship we have. Vasquez nodded slowly, as if she had expected this. Admiral, I lost my sister to your raiders. My first officer lost his entire family. Every person on these ships has lost someone to the Dominion. We have fought your people for 5 years. We know exactly how far your pride will take you. She leaned forward slightly. But I'm giving you this chance anyway, because unlike you, I don't enjoy killing. Stand down, and we can end this without more death. Never. Then I'm sorry for your crews. They deserved better leadership. The transmission ended. The human fleet began moving again. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. The humans picked apart the Dominion defensive sphere piece by piece. They found every weakness, exploited every gap, destroyed every ship that tried to break away and run. The counselors watched in horrified fascination. These humans fought with precision and coordination that seemed almost mechanical. They communicated constantly, adjusting their tactics in real time, responding to every Dominion move before it was fully executed. How are they doing this? Counselor Seeks asked. Her scales had turned pale, the color of fear. How do they know where our ships will be before they get there? They've been studying Dominion tactics for 5 years, Lathan said. They probably know your combat doctrine better than your own captains do. 2 hours later, it was over. The Eternal Conquest hung dead in space, its weapons destroyed, its engines silent. 147 Dominion ships had been reduced to wreckage. The survivors, including Admiral Vex, had been taken prisoner. Human losses. 7 ships destroyed, 12 damaged. Less than 1,000 casualties. Captain Vasquez's face appeared on the council display once more. She looked even more tired than before, but there was no triumph in her expression. Only a heavy, quiet sadness. Speaker Vethel, she said, I'm coming back to the station. We need to finish our conversation. Bethel found that his voice had left him. Counselor Mrath answered instead. Captain Vasquez, what we just witnessed is what happens when you underestimate people who have nothing left to lose. Vasquez glanced away from the screen for a moment, listening to something off camera. We've secured the Dominion prisoners. We'll be bringing some of them with us. We have questions about our people, and they're going to answer them. Council. The Council will need time to process these developments. You've had 5 years to process them, Counselor? Our people have been dying while you processed. I think you've had enough time. The transmission ended. In the council chamber, no one spoke. Ambassador Crix had collapsed into a chair, his gray face now completely white. The other counselors stared at each other. At the display showing the debris field that had been a Dominion fleet, at the human ships that held position around the station like patient wolves, everything they believed about the universe had just been proven wrong. And the humans were coming back to have a conversation they could no longer avoid. Captain Elena Vasquez walked through the corridors of Eternal, Cord for the second time. The crowds were still there, watching her pass. But they looked at her differently now. Before, they had seen a curiosity, a strange creature from a primitive world who did not know her place. Now they saw something else. They saw someone who had just destroyed the third, largest fleet in the galaxy with a fraction of the forces. Vasquez ignored the stares. She had Admiral Dex and 3 of his senior officers walking ahead of her. Their hands bound, their proud faces now hollow with shock. Human soldiers flanked the prisoners, weapons ready. They walked through the station like conquerors, because that was what they were. The council chamber was silent when she entered. The counselors sat in their ancient seats, but they no longer looked like rulers. They looked like frightened children waiting to learn their punishment. Ambassador Crix was gone. He had tried to flee during the battle, but human soldiers had found him in a shuttle bay and escorted him back. He now stood at the edge of the chamber, guarded by 2 Marines, who looked like they were hoping he would give them an excuse. Vasquez walked to the speaking platform and looked up at the council. Then she turned to Admiral Dex. Where are our people? Dex said nothing. His eyes stared straight ahead, refusing to acknowledge the human who had destroyed everything he had built his career upon. I have recordings from your ships, Vasquez continued. Communication logs. Prisoner manifests. I know you took over 30,000 humans alive during your raids. I want to know where they are now. Silence. Admiral, you can answer me here, or you can answer me somewhere less comfortable. Either way, you're going to talk. The only question is how much it costs you first. One of Vex's officers, a younger Dominion with fear in his eyes, spoke up. The labor camps. They're sent to labor camps on Dominion industrial worlds. The ones who survived the journey. Lieutenant, be silent, Vex commanded. The ones who survived the journey? Vasquez repeated. How many survive? The lieutenant looked at his admiral, then back at Vasquez. Maybe half. Vasquez closed her eyes for a moment. 15,000? 15,000 of her people had died in cargo holds. Treated like animals, shipped to serve masters who saw them as nothing more than useful tools. Which worlds? She asked. Her voice was steady, but something dangerous lurked beneath the surface. The lieutenant gave her coordinates, names, details about the camps, the guards, the conditions. Vex ordered him to stop several times, but the lieutenant had seen what human ships could do. He was not interested in protecting secrets anymore. When he was finished, Vasquez turned to the council. You heard all of that? Did. Speaker Bethel said. His crystalline form had dimmed to a pale, sickly gray. Captain Vasquez, on behalf of the council, I wish to express... Don't. Bethel stopped. Don't express regret. Don't tell me how sorry you are for something you could have prevented at any time over the last 5 years. Vasquez looked at each counselor in turn. I didn't come here for apologies. I came here for information, and now I have it. What will you do? Counselor Marath asked. We're going to get our people back. Every single one of them who's still alive. And any Dominion world that tries to stop us will learn the same lesson this fleet learned today. The Dominion will not allow. Crix began. The Dominion will allow whatever we decide to take. Vasquez cut him off without looking at him. You don't get to negotiate anymore, Ambassador. You lost that right when you started killing my people. She pulled up a display showing a map of known space. Human ships were marked in blue, scattered across the outer territories. There were more than the 47 that had surrounded the station. Many more. This is our current fleet strength. Every ship built from Dominion wreckage over the last 5 years. Every weapon reverse engineered from technology you thought was too advanced for primitives like us to understand. She highlighted the Dominion industrial worlds where human prisoners were held. We're coming for our people. Anyone who helps us will be remembered as a friend. Anyone who stands in our way will be removed. You're proposing war against the Dominion, Counselor Seek said. A full-scale war that could destabilize the entire galaxy. I'm proposing the rescue of innocent people who were taken from their homes and sold into slavery. If the galaxy is destabilized by stopping that, maybe it should be.
Oh.
The Council cannot sanction such action, Bethel said. Our charter requires neutrality in disputes between. I'm not asking for your sanction. Vasquez stepped closer to the Council seats. I'm telling you what's going to happen. You can help, or you can stay out of the way. Those are your only options. The counselors looked at each other. For 10,000 years, no species had spoken to them like this. For 10,000 years, their authority had been absolute and unquestioned. That time was over. Counselor Math spoke first. The Torvin will not oppose human rescue operations. We will. Stay out of the way. Scenari as well, Bethel added reluctantly. We will remain neutral. One by one, the other counselors offered similar statements. Not support exactly, but not opposition either. They were too frightened of the humans to help the Dominion, and too proud to admit they were frightened. It was enough. There's one more thing, Vasquez said. After we rescue our people, we're not going home to hide. We're not going to sit on our little quarantined world and wait for the next predator to come hunting. We're going to be out here in your galaxy, whether you like it or not. What do you want? Counselor Tiren asked. I want what that Vichy ambassador wanted when he came to you 3 days ago. Protection for the weak. Justice for the victims. Someone who actually gives a damn about the species too small to defend themselves. Vasquez looked at the assembled rulers of known space. You've had 10,000 years to build that. You built this instead. A pretty chamber where powerful beings congratulate themselves while the galaxy burns. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small communication device. She set it on the speaking platform. This is a direct line to my flagship. Any species that needs protection from raiders, slavers, or anyone else too strong for them to fight, they can call this number. We'll come. You cannot protect the entire galaxy, Seek said. No, but we can protect the parts you won't. Vasquez turned and started walking toward the exit. We'll be in touch. She paused at the doorway and looked back one final time. You called us primitive, violent, too dangerous for civilized company. Maybe you were right. But I'd rather be dangerous and fighting for something than civilized and fighting for nothing. Think about that the next time you form a committee to study someone else's suffering. She walked out. Her soldiers followed, taking the prisoners with them. The council sat in silence for a long time. Finally, young Lathan spoke from her monitoring station. Speaker, there's a transmission coming in on the human communication device. It's from the Vichy ambassador. He's asking if the message about protection is genuine. Bethel stared at the small device on the speaking platform. Such a simple thing. Such a dangerous thing. What should I tell him? Lathan asked. Bethel didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. Outside the station, human ships were already moving toward their first targets, toward the labor camps where their people waited for rescue that they had stopped believing would ever come. The galaxy had changed today. The old order, comfortable and complacent, and built on 10,000 years of careful nothing, had cracked. Something new was pushing through. Something that refused to look away from suffering. Something that answered calls for help instead of filing them for review. Something that had crawled up from a violent, dangerous world and decided that strength should mean protecting the weak instead of preying on them. 6 months later, the first human relief ship arrived at a liberated labor camp. The rescued prisoners, humans, and a dozen other species who had been taken alongside them. watched a shuttle descend through the smoky atmosphere. A woman stepped out. She wore a worn uniform. She looked tired, older than her years, carrying weight that would never fully leave her shoulders. But she smiled when she saw them. A real smile, warm and human, and full of something that had survived 5 years of war and horror. "My name is Elena Vasquez," she said. "I'm here to take you home." The survivors wept. Some fell to their knees. Others simply stood and stared, unable to believe that someone had actually come for them. Behind them, in the ruins of the camp, a Dominion flag burned. Above them, human ships held watch, their weapons ready to protect instead of destroy. And across the galaxy, in a crystal chamber that suddenly felt very small and very old, the rulers of known space were beginning to understand that their pride had been shattered not by human weapons, but by human hearts. They had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had never once asked if they were governing it well. Now someone had arrived who was willing to ask that question, and who would not accept silence as an answer.